In 2022, we saw the start of a new era in Formula 1, which a huge raft of regulation changes which shuffled the pack, whilst the cast looked vastly different from what we had seen in the turbo hybrid era so far. But the promise that sold us all a dream was that it would give us better racing due to the lack of dirty air that would come off the back of the cars, meaning that cars could overtake much more easily. However, with a new regulation change, it may not always work, and it is guaranteed to change the pack in some way or another. 2022 saw a massive change, with Mercedes not being on top anymore. Instead, it was Red Bull. So it changed the pack more than we have ever seen in a long time. Many people hoped that this would stop the Mercedes dominance and we could see title fates go down to the end instead of one driver just winning all the time and having the championship wrapped up ages before the final race in Abu Dhabi. However, for 2022 and 2023 so far, one team has dominated and nobody else has come close, and that is Red Bull, mainly with Max Verstappen. After we saw a phenomenal season in 2021, was there any need to change the regulations? Well, in today's video, we will talk about how the regulations may have failed to make better racing. Should have the regulations not been changed due to how the 2021 season was? And finally, how this could maybe be an overreaction. Let's get right into it. To start off with, we will talk about the new regulations and their intentions and how they may have failed in actually making the racing any better. These regulations were announced a long time ago and they were due to come in for the 2021 season, but due to a certain disease, it meant that they were delayed for the 2022 season. The whole purpose was to deflect the air coming off the car to go over the car behind it, which reduces the dirty air. Dirty air for the driver behind, the easier it should be for that driver to overtake the car ahead. And of course, we want more overtakes. In years before these regulations were announced, it would be hard for cars to overtake, even with DRS, which meant that the races would be pretty boring, and these new regulations and cars would hopefully change that. But with every regulation change comes a new order of the grid, due to some teams getting the changes right and other teams not. This happened with Red Bull being one of the ones that to get it spot on, whilst everyone else struggled for the most part, and they had no challenges. What everyone expected coming into the 2022 season was that we would have battles from the very top of the grid down to the very bottom. It did work for most of the midfield having battles in every single race, and there was no real quickest team in the middle of the pack. However, the battle of the front in both 2022 and 2023 so far is very dull, and the gap between the quickest and the second quickest team is massive. But before the regulations changed, we had one team in Mercedes dominating, and a lot of speculation was that the big change was going to stop this dominance. This has worked with Mercedes really struggling with their car for the past 2 years, but on the other hand, it has resulted in even more dominance from another team in Red Bull. The regulations aim to have more battling and overtaking, but in the most recent race in Baku, there were just 23 overtakes in the whole of the race. This resulted in a really boring race, if we're being honest. There was no battle at the front, and in the midfield, there was just a massive DRS train, which meant that everyone was stuck in the exact same positions. Also, due to the one-stop strategy with the new tyres that came in 2022, this meant that the strategy was easy to predict and nobody was wanting to try a 3-stop to make the race exciting at all. This could be the start of an era of the sport where races are just not as entertaining due to the dominance of other teams and how nobody can overtake each other like they used to. What are your thoughts on the new regulations? Do you think they have worked, or do you think they have failed miserably in their purpose of giving us better racing and more overtaking? Let us know in the comments below. On to our next subject, which is regarding if the regulations should have changed after the excitement that the 2021 season brought us all. 2021 was an exciting race from the very top of the grid down to the very bottom, with every race being exciting for some reason or another, but mainly the title fight being so intense and exciting. The racing was just so good, with the battles at the top making it more exciting, and the midfield was so tight it provided for great entertainment, which is the opposite of these past few seasons in the sport. The question is, should have the regulations not been changed after one of the best seasons of all time? Well, the answer is possibly yes, but it would have been near enough possible to push back the regulations. This is because the teams would have been building the 2022 cars for months in advance before the 2021 season would have ended. So if the FIA all of a sudden told them to stop, it would have caused an uproar between the teams due to the amount of money and time which would have been lost. However, from the fans' point of view, I'm sure that they would have wanted the 2021 season to be repeated year after year, as it was that good, but it would have been impossible to delay the changes any further from what they have already been delayed. Overall, even though some fans and maybe drivers would have liked these regulations to come in later, it would have been near impossible to do so. But for better racing, it should have been delayed. However, the FIA are the ones who make the final decisions, not us. On to our final topic, which is how all of this talk about the regulations and how the race in Baku was boring is kind of an overreaction due to how boring the race was in Baku. When the sprint was better than the race, it says a lot really. But every year, even in 2021, we had boring races. It just happens sometimes in Formula 1. This may be a one-off this year, and every single race after Baku could all be very exciting race, and Baku could just have been a one-off. We have to give the regulations time. Say if we get to the end of the 2024 season and we have a dull season with the races where little overtake happens, then we will have to worry, but we have to give it time for sure. For example, the 2014 regulations provided poor racing in both 2014 and 2015, with Mercedes dominating. As the years went on, more teams started to bring the fight to the silver arrows, such as in 2018 when Ferrari and Vettel gave it to Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, and of course in the 2021 season where Red Bull and Verstappen brought the fight to make it one of the best seasons in a long time. Over time, people will catch up to Red Bull. It's just natural. It's not impossible that they win every championship with no one battling, but other teams will improve. Ferrari has a solid car, which they can build upon next year. Mercedes know how to build a good car, and they will be back for certain. And Aston Martin, well, they look to be up there on the top. It may be a big overreaction from just one bad race to say that these regulations have failed. However, there were several boring races last season due to the lack of battles and overtakes. Overall, you have to give these regulations some time before we start asking the FIA questions regarding if they should change them. What are your thoughts? Should we make a change to the regulations in the coming years to make the racing better, or should it be given time to see if the racing does improve? Make sure to drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this one.